Greetings, humans. Welcome back to Sci-Fi Punks, where we talk all things sci-fi, movies, comics, video games, novels. If it's sci-fi, I like to blab about it. And today, I'm going to give you one of my hot takes, as I have many of them, as you might have surmised by now. If you are no stranger to pop culture, if you've been paying attention to pop culture for the past 20 years or so, then it's no secret to you that Hollywood has relied heavily on releasing prequels, remakes, sequels, reboots, just franchises. That's what they've relied on, is telling lots and lots of stories, making lots and lots of movies about Spider-Man, Batman, Star Wars, Harry Potter, you name it. And people have often commented on how this is a representation of how creatively bankrupt Hollywood has become. They often point to this plethora of content about these same characters and these same ideas and say, look at how shallow Hollywood has become. They can't think of any new ideas, and this is a bad thing. They often say this is a terrible thing. Storytelling is dying or whatever. And I do not necessarily agree with this. And I actually don't even think it's true. So first of all, this particular method of just milking an idea for all it's worth or telling tons and tons of stories about one character, that particular concept has been going on for as long as storytelling has existed. I mean, just, you can think of any number of examples off the top of your head. Robin Hood, Sherlock Holmes, King Arthur. Some of these characters have had stories about them going back centuries. People like to hone in on a particular character and tell lots of stories about them. It's just something we've always done. So this is nothing new for Hollywood. Yes, now it seems a little bit more cynical because there's all this advertising. They sell action figures. There's marketing behind something like Star Wars. So it does seem a bit more capitalistic and cynical that Hollywood does this so often than something like a bunch of Sherlock Holmes novels that were written in the early 20th century. But I think it's not really that different at all. I think it's the same thing. So in my opinion, Spider-Man and Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter, they're just the King Arthurs and the Robin Hoods and the Sherlock Holmeses of our time, of the modern era. That's all that Luke Skywalker is. He's just, a modern day version of something like Robin Hood, a character that we just like to tell lots of stories about. I don't see why this needs to be considered such a bad thing. And it's also, I think it's actually a really cool thing too, because what happens is when you establish a character like Spider-Man, and everybody knows Spider-Man's backstory, we all have heard it a million times before, so we all understand who Spider-Man is, like your grandma knows who Spider-Man is. When you have a character like that, it opens up more storytelling possibilities, because now nobody has to do the heavy lifting of making you care about a character before you come up with some new idea for them. The heavy lifting's already been done. Everyone knows who they are, and a lot of people already care about them. So now you can explore some really complex storytelling opportunities that would have been difficult to do if you still needed to introduce this character to people. So it's kind of cool that we have something like Batman where we all know who he is already. So now we can put him in these interesting scenarios and kind of experiment with him in ways that would be more difficult with just some random character. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, if you're no longer interested in the property, if you've had enough of it, you can ignore it. You can just move on. You don't have to keep watching Star Wars. You can say to yourself, oh, why don't they just stop making more Star Wars stuff already? There's just so much crap. Just fucking stop watching it. For me, there is only a few Star Wars movies that are any good. And I also say, keep making them. Keep making lots of Star Wars movies. Go on forever, Disney. Make as many as you want, because maybe one day you'll accidentally make a good one again. Maybe that will happen. And when that day comes, I'll be there. I'll be like, sweet, you finally made a good one. And if you never happen to make another good Star Wars movie again, then fine. That's fine with me. I will just not pay any attention. And also, it's not like there isn't new stuff coming out all the time. There is always new stuff coming out. There's tons of new stories always being produced. Lots of movies, lots of original ideas coming out of Hollywood and the independent film market and in novels and stuff like that. The problem is you don't go and check it out. Nobody seems to care anymore. So if you want more and more original ideas to be produced by Hollywood, then you need to go out and support something like the movie The Creator, directed by Gareth Edwards, which came out a couple years ago, and it flopped because, I don't know, nobody cared about it. It was an original idea, and it just didn't have any push behind it because it wasn't Spider-Man. And if you're also the same kind of person that's saying, oh, we need more original ideas, then it's on you to go and support a movie like this. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with supporting franchise movies. I think it's probably a good thing for you to check out some original material from time to time. Just step out of your bubble. Like, I'm currently reading this novel by a local Calgary author. And it's some original stuff. It's a new idea, and it's an original concept. So I'm giving that a chance. While at the same time, I'm still watching Godzilla movies. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of that. Another thing that I have noticed, though, is that whenever a new IP does come out, a new film that's not attached to any previous franchise, a lot of people will often say, oh, this is just a ripoff of something we've already seen before. There's not really any new ideas here. It's just derivative of Star Wars or The Matrix or whatever. And this takes me to my next hot take that I actually think will even be more upsetting to a lot of people. And that is simply that I think that there might be a limit onto the amount of good ideas that actually exist. Now, a lot of people like to say, oh, the human imagination is limitless. And I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't think that's the case when it comes to good ideas that are worth telling stories about. I actually do think it's very feasible that there are a limited number of good ideas out there, and that we might have explored them all by now. We might have actually done that. There are 8 billion people on this planet, all thinking up their own ideas. And we might have just run the well dry, unfortunately. And so now we do have to tell lots of stories about Spider-Man and Star Wars because there just isn't anything out there. If you want to come up, like a good example is Rebel Moon by that Zack Snyder film. And everyone just said, oh, this is a ripoff of Star Wars. Yeah. Anything that's a space opera, anything that deals with the concept of an intergalactic civilization and war is going to be a ripoff of Star Wars, which was a ripoff of Dune, because that's a really good idea. And we like to tell stories in that vein. I will say, though, that in the realm of science fiction, there are a lot of unused ideas that haven't been... There are a lot of ideas out there that haven't been used yet in a lot of obscure science fiction novels that are that, in my opinion, would make great movies, and they haven't been tapped yet. And as audiences become more and more sophisticated, I think in time we will start seeing these more complex, like Arthur C. Clarke novels being adapted into films. Which is cool, but those are still ideas that have already been done before. That is just an adaptation of a novel. It's not a new idea. So I don't blame Hollywood for being creatively bankrupt in this regard, because there really isn't much else to do, which, is a pretty pessimistic view, I admit. But I really don't know what else to say. I think it's just I think it might just be one of those harsh truths that we're going to have to come to terms with, that we just have thought of everything. So now what we can do is kind of explore the characters that we already know and love in more complex ways. Like, I'm not a big fan of Marvel. Marvel's okay, superhero. I'm just not a big superhero guy. I did hear about this one news story about the Incredible Hulk, where I guess the Hulk's other half, Bruce Banner, the human side of him, grows old and becomes really sick and is going to die soon. But the Hulk, his Hulk side of him, is still young and healthy. And so he refuses to turn back into the Bruce Banner side of himself because he doesn't want to die. So he's let the Hulk side of himself completely take over. This is cool stuff. Like, that is a really complex, interesting idea that is only made possible by exploring something like the Hulk, a character that we already know. And then he's been in a ton of movies, and we're all sick of seeing Marvel movies, but because we all know who the Hulk is, and a lot of people already care who the Hulk is, it lets us do this thing where we can get really complex with the characters and really get into who they are in ways that we couldn't do with a brand new character that no one's ever heard before. Basically, so I think that I don't see any reason why Hollywood should ever stop making sequels and remakes and reboots, because A, I don't think it's that creatively bankrupt, and B, I don't think there are that many new ideas anyways, so we might as well just explore what we have, and C, if you don't like something, you can stop paying attention. No one is forcing you to keep watching Star Wars films. You can just stop going to them. And for the people that do enjoy them, let them go enjoy them. There's nothing wrong with it, and I don't think that it's doing anything negative to storytelling as a whole. In fact, I think it actually is a really good thing for storytelling. I think it's actually opened up a lot more avenues of storytelling. Anyways, that's all I have to say today. So this has been the Sci-Fi Punks. All hail Megatron.